Okay, we're starting off this week with a look at a film which is out tomorrow, and in fact is out today when the podcast is released, and that is Beau is Afraid. This is the latest from Ari Aster, and it's appropriate to come out this week because this is Mental Health Awareness Week, because this is a challenging watch about paranoia and depression. Beau is played by Joaquin Phoenix, and he's living in a very bad neighborhood in a US city. Chaos is reigning all around him, which doesn't help his extreme paranoia. He's due to visit his mother, but this simple trip is going to turn into a life-changing odyssey. Here's a clip.
You will walk many miles. Dozens will become hundreds. Hundreds will become thousands. Your adventures will continue for years and years.
I just need to get home.
I know.
Emma, let's start with you. Welcome to Flickering Dreams. What did you make of Beau is Afraid?
Well, it's definitely 3 hours of my life I need back. Was very annoyed having to sit through all of that. Actually, I hate checking my phone for the time, but I got to a point I was like, oh, it must nearly be over, and we were only an hour in. And I died inside a little. But I thought it was a good representation of anxiety. And obviously you see where he lives, and everything's just ramped up that bit more. Yes, it's a dangerous area, but I mean, the insanity that was happening there is definitely a reflection of his anxiety, which I thought was really good. Yeah, ultimately, me and A24 do not get along. It's very Marmite. I either love them or hate them. And Ari Aster is very much a no on my list. I didn't fancy seeing Hereditary, so that's on my to-watch list at some point in the very, very distant future now. And I didn't enjoy Midsommar, so yeah, it's made me love Midsommar now. That was fantastic programming compared to this, I'm afraid.
Okay. Andy, what do you think about it?
On the basis that it would be boring if we all agreed all the time, I quite like this. I thought it was very entertaining. It kept me hooked. It kept me wanting to know what happened next. And I confess, Emma, I wasn't looking at the time at all, because I was just kept constantly thinking, how much more bizarre is this going to get? How much more weird is this going to get? What's coming next? I want to know. And I want to know how this ends. And I certainly didn't see the ending coming. And for me, there's a real hodgepodge of stuff in there. There's an elongated animated sequence, which kind of probably you could do without, but it's quite fun to watch. The ending, there's a lot of Dante in this for me, and where Dante, of course, in his books talks about different levels of hell. And it seemed to me that we start in one level of hell in that neighborhood where he lives, and then we literally descend with him through various levels of hell. So I kind of saw a Dante structure to it, which appealed to me as a fan of Dante, and I really quite enjoy it. Joaquin Phoenix is great. I mean, I think he's in virtually every single scene, and gives us.
Do you think this is an Oscar-worthy performance?
I think it would be. I mean, normally the Academy wouldn't go for this type of film, but after the success of Everything Everywhere All at Once last year, who knows? Who knows? So let's hope so.
I think we just lost Scott, but we'll hopefully get him back soon. Yeah, I thought the first 45 minutes or so based in the city was absolutely fabulous. I thought I kind of had my 5-star badge ready to deploy. It was exhausting seeing Beau reflecting all this chaos around him, stoking up his anxiety, all of the items on the news kind of pumping home that view that says the 24-hour news cycle is increasing society's stress. Reminded me very much of the Truman Show in that regard. And a lot of the things that happened were ludicrous, but in interesting way, kind of plausible as well. I thought it was a really clever script. There was so much detail in this film, even though, like you, Emma, I don't particularly want to spend another 3 hours of my life to see it again. But I really think I, in some ways, want to spend another 3 hours to focus in on all of the detail in the background, what's written on the walls. There's a point where it kind of only partially shows you a little flyer about a spider on the loose, and then the spider plays a key plot in the part of the film that comes in. So there's a lot of stuff like that going on. And there was some random stuff going on particularly in his mother's house, Mona's house, towards the end of the film. And there were things like, there was a company brochure, which I'm sure had a new picture of a pristine looking version of Beau's flat. It was almost subliminal, and there was writing around it, which I didn't get a chance to read. That was in there. And then there was a collage of Mona on the wall, made up of lots of individual little pictures. And at one point, the camera zooms right into this collage, and you see a bunch of about 8 or 10 pictures that make up this collage. And there's something about that, but it was too quick.
I think it was characters, wasn't it, that we'd seen earlier in the film?
Well, was it?
Yeah,
I think
it was. I'm pretty sure it was people from the theatre group and people from different places that we'd seen in the film were making up that collage.
The only one I clocked was Parker Posey.
Yeah.
Okay. I wondered if that was Parker Posey in there. Right. Okay. Yeah. And there was an even more bizarre one, which I'm not sure whether this is real or it was just the mental state of the film getting into my brain. But I could have sworn that when Beau walked down the staircase at his mum's house, that Harry Potter style, one of the photos on the wall waved. And yeah, you saw that as well, Andy.
Yeah, I thought I did.
Well, if you thought you did and I thought I did, it probably happened.
Probably did.
But God knows how much more stuff is in this film to be uncovered. There's probably a PhD on Beau is Afraid for a movie student to analyze it frame by frame and pull out all of the different Easter eggs and things in this film. I thought it was extraordinarily detailed and intense in that way. But it's also very unsettling, I found it, because a lot of the things that happen in a film like this, you typically have things happening and then you'll find, it was just in Beau's head and it was a dream. And then you go backwards and it didn't really happen. He's woken up or he's come to his senses and that didn't really happen. This film just throws in bizarre thing after bizarre thing and keeps on going, and it forms part of the ongoing plot. And I find that very unsettling. I wasn't prepared for it to do that. The film just didn't kind of work that way. I also found it a very funny film in places. I mean, we have this rule, don't we, that says you have to laugh 6 times for it to be a comedy. I definitely laughed 6 times at different things in this film. It was very black humour, I have to say, but bits of it were very funny. There's one scene, a very graphic sex scene involving Beau and Parker Posey's character, Elaine, and we won't go into exactly how that ends, but it is both shocking and hilarious in equal measure, given the way that the plot unfolds. So that was good. For me, though, this was a fabulous film for the first 45 minutes, but then it kind of went off the rails. And I desperately wanted there to be a co-director or a co-writer, a bit like the Daniels, although, to be honest, Everything Everywhere All at Once went off in all sorts of bizarre directions, even with that. But somebody just to pull Astor back and say, as you said, Andy, this 15, 20, 30-minute animated film within the film, do we really need that? It really doesn't add anything much to the story going on. It just takes 30 minutes of our time, which, frankly, I'd rather progress with the main story. I just felt it needed that tempering to say, pull it back and make a much better 2-hour, 2.25-hour film instead. Because 3-hour films, I will normally, not always, but sometimes, given my advanced age, nip out for a wee at one point. And this was not a film you could do that. You left for 2 or 3 minutes, come back, you would be completely lost about what had happened, because it just piles on and on and on with such relentless plot and bizarre things happening. You wouldn't.
We're back to Alfred Hitchcock saying that a film should only be the length of the endurance of the human bladder, aren't we?
Yes, that's a very good quote. Yes, indeed. Yeah, and some of the scenes just went completely over the top crazy. What happened in Beau's attic was just he'd been smoking something. We talked about this again a few weeks ago, but there was a very interesting podcast with Ari Aster and Joaquin Phoenix called, what's it called? It's the A24 podcast. It's called something like Careless Whispers, not Careless Whisperers. Silent Laughter, Careless Laughter, or something like that. Look it up. It's them talking about the film, and it just kind of sounds like there were two really semi-intense and crazy people dumped into a set to make this film. And some of the things that went on in the making of this film sound like they were both on the very, very edge of their own mental capabilities in terms of staying sane.
Which probably explains a lot.
Yeah, probably does. Emma, I hate to ask, what did you give this one out of 10?
Well, it's low. It's a 2 from me, I'm afraid.
Okay.
I mean, I do feel like it should be watched again. However, I did discover it was based off a 7-minute short, so maybe watch that again instead.
Okay.
Maybe.
Andy?
I'll give it a 7, Bob, thinking about it. But okay. I did like the structure. I liked as I say, the Dante structure of a continued descent into hell. Yeah.
Okay. And I was maybe a little bit generous, but I could have given it a 2, or I could have given it a 10 at some points, but I gave it an 8 because I think I'll want to see it again. And I think if I see it again, I will maybe appreciate it more than I did. So I've kind of got a holding 8 there for that. So that's an 8, an 8 and a 2. So that's 16, 18 divided by 3. That's a 6 out of 10, isn't it? There we go.
Enough.
Mental arithmetic. Whew. Unfortunately, even without my dodgy arithmetic, this makes Beau is Afraid a Marmite movie and an unfortunate